What is up, everyone? This is Adam with the Lavin Real Estate Group and Next Home Synergy. And I'm here today with 5 tips on how to make a winning bid in this crazy market that we have going on right now. Now, we have a kind of a colliding of worlds as we move into the spring and summer markets, where we're seeing the interest rates rise, as we spoke about, a little bit higher and faster than we anticipated. And so we have sellers that are looking to sell their home because they're kind of afraid that they're going to miss out on the height of the market and getting as much equity out of the sale of their house from their original purchase of their house as possible. And we have buyers that have to buy and have to move that are looking to get in now as opposed to later because they're afraid that the interest rates are going to get up even higher. That being said, we are still in a seller's market, and what that seller's market means is that there is more buyers that are pre-approved and ready to purchase a home with a mortgage or cash and writing offers on houses than there is inventory to get to them. So we're not even close to a 50-50 or even a 60-40. It's pretty out of balance still, and thus we're calling it a seller's market. So with that being said, it doesn't even matter how well qualified you are per se. It really matters about the offer and the concessions that we're offering to the sellers. So these are 5 tips on what you should think about as you prepare to move into these spring and summer markets that is going to put your offer out ahead of anybody else that is bidding. Now, number 1 is making an offer over asking price. Now, it's not in every scenario that you have to do this. There are the outliers. There's the fixer-uppers where we go in and maybe it's not a complete gut job, but there's just a lot of work that needs to be done. And in that case, it's certainly negotiable to a point. Now, that being said, there are still going to be a lot of offers on the home with other concessions being given, but you're not going to see anything crazy over asking price in most of those scenarios, and generally you'll see them be on the market for more than the first weekend that they're up. What this is in terms of is those houses that are in the desirable school districts that are move-in ready, or in a lot of cases more than move-in ready, kind of that like HGTV style. We've updated the doors and the kitchens and bathrooms and flooring, and everything's painted and new and staged and ready to go, and you see the pictures online. You're not the only one that's attracted by it. There's going to be a lot of buyers ready to go. And so the standard right now is kind of that you're offering over asking price. Now, are you offering more than the home is worth? Well, generally not, actually. It's important that you're working with a very skilled agent that understands the market that the houses are being sold in that you're looking at, as well as the marketing tactics that each agent is employing along with their sellers on each listing. Now, this changes from listing to listing, but essentially what's happening is that agents are underpricing the home from where it's going to actually sell and appraise at, so that they can create these bidding wars essentially, and they could get multiple offers. What that does for the seller is give them the option of viewing more than just the highest price per se, and finding the best option for them that meets all of their goals in order for them to make their next move. The second thing is something called an appraisal gap. Now, this started becoming a thing if you know anybody that bought a house last summer, and it kind of has stuck, but now it's really become a thing. And what the appraisal gap is essentially, if you're not purchasing the house in cash, every mortgage, every bank out there, every mortgage out there requires an appraisal on a home. And what an appraisal is that a licensed professional called an appraiser goes out to the home and looks at the quality of the home, the area of the home, how good of condition it's in, if there's anything that would detract from it in terms of the property or the land, or anything big around the area, like a nuclear plant would bring down the value of your home or something like that, or anything that might add to it as well. But the appraiser comes up with a number often mostly based on what other houses have sold in the area and what that home that they're appraising is like in comparison to those homes that sold most recently. Now, they have to be sales that have gone through completely from start to finish. So, just because a house a month ago that hasn't actually closed on its sale yet has sold for $50,000 over the asking price, it doesn't necessarily go into consideration. Now, I will say from my experience, appraisers are doing a pretty good job of contacting agents that have homes under contract and trying to find out what those homes are selling for, just so they have an idea of the which direction the market's going in. That being said, this appraisal gap contingency is essentially the buyer telling the seller that even though they need to get a mortgage, if the home doesn't appraise at the price that they offer for, that the buyer is willing to pay the difference in cash. Now, two things with that. One is that you need to be able to show a proof of funds on your buyer's financial information sheet that you actually have the ability to do that. The next thing is to really assess your risk and understand where you're at with all that. So the best thing you can do is kind of talk to your real estate agent and understand, where they think from their expertise that the appraisal is going to wind up versus what you're ultimately going to have to offer to bid on. And then also get a little bit creative perhaps with your mortgage broker or your mortgage professional, and see if you can maybe do something in terms of reducing the amount that you're putting on the down payment, and then putting that towards this appraisal gap so that the seller is essentially guaranteed the amount that was offered on the house. Now, the one thing that you can do as a buyer is you can actually limit the gap that you're willing to pay, and that way, let's say that you say that you'll pay the gap up to $10,000 and the appraisal for some reason came in $50,000 short. That gives you some protection where you're not paying an exorbitant amount over, and also you can kind of use that as a negotiation with the seller and their agent at that point to say like, hey, can we come up with a deal? Or you also have the option of just kind of walking away, because at that point the contingency kicks in and you can get out of it. Number 3 are inspections. Now, let me start out by saying I don't suggest anybody, unless you are a professional in the housing industry, waives inspections unless you really know what you're looking at. Even professionals might miss something, and this is going to be one of the biggest purchases of your life. So I don't necessarily suggest it every single time. That being said, there are scenarios where that is what it's going to take for you to win the bid right now, which is why I strongly suggest that you work with a professional who also has the availability to work with reliable vendors to help you understand, what could possibly be an issue in the house, so that you understand what you're walking into when you're purchasing it and any costs that might be incurred within the first couple of years of ownership. Now, nobody can guess, what could possibly go wrong overall, but if you're working with somebody that's pretty good about it and can point out those things, I would definitely, lean on that, but also not take it as a guarantee. Now, if you're walking around with an agent that's already showing you houses and they're not actively pointing out things in a market where we know that, inspections are often getting waived, that might be a red flag to you as to, you might want to dig a little bit deeper as to whether or not they have that knowledge, or perhaps seek out somebody that is able to do that for you so that you're at least a little bit protected and you have some foresight as to what may be a potential issue down the road. But that is really big right now, is pretty much every winning offer is waiving inspections, because it gives the seller, a little bit of safety knowing that you're not going to back out of the purchase of the home, and also they're not going to have to renegotiate the price or any repairs to the house before they move on to their next home. Number 4 is seller moving concessions. So what I mean by that is that the market that we're in right now, a lot of sellers, they're moving either up or down in the style of house that they live in, because the market has grown so much over the last few years, and they have a lot of their equity in their house, and it was their biggest investment at the time they purchased it. So in most cases, not every case, but in most cases, people need to sell their house in order to get the money out of that house and then purchase their next house. So the best thing you can do as a buyer is kind of go in knowing that, and do what you can to offer some cushion for the sellers to be able to have time and comfortably search for their next home. Now, this can be done in a variety of ways. Often the most common way right now is to close on the home and then offer a lease back situation where the seller is now paying for your mortgage as the buyer. You just haven't moved in yet, essentially, so you sort of become a landlord for a little bit until the seller is able to find their next home and move out of it. There are a lot of scenarios where there are no payments occurring, and they're just kind of doing a free rent back sort of, and giving them time. Obviously end date needs to be put on that in some way, shape, or form to make sure that it doesn't go on forever. And there are, even more creative ideas out there as to how to get that done. But that is definitely something that, as if you're going in and you know that you're going to be one of 15 to 20 offers, that's probably going to be one of the things that gives the seller some, comfort, knowing that, okay, they got through this process and sold their home, and they got a great buyer coming into the home, and now they can take their time to a point and be able to go through the same process that you just went through and find their home and make offers on it. Because right now you're really not able to make an offer with the contingency of still having to sell your home, because the sellers want to have a guarantee and kind of move everything right along. And then number 5, and we kind of alluded to this in the inspections, but you need to make sure you have a great agent right now that understands how to work with buyers and is willing to put in work for you. So number 1, they need to understand the market. They need to understand how the house is being priced. You can't just go into every house and say like, oh, well, how high do you want to bid? There needs to be some rhyme or reason to it, and you need to make sure that while it's your decision as to how much you ultimately want to pay for a home, that agent is guiding you and giving you their expertise as to what they believe the house will ultimately be worth, and kind of a little bit of a bird's eye view of where the market would be going in that particular area that you're looking in with the particular house that you're looking at. The other thing is, obviously, we talked about the inspections. Make sure that they know about the actual house. Some agents out there, they're really great people, and they run around and they'll take you out to lunch and you'll have a great time and laugh about everything, but they don't really understand the inner workings of the physical house for some reason. I don't know why or how that happens, but it just is the way it is. But right now, in this market where you're waiving all these inspections and where appraisal gaps are kicking in and all these things, you really need to make sure that the person that's walking around with the house with you is just as knowledgeable and more knowledgeable than the workings of everything that makes up the house. So the roof, the flashing that goes around the roof, the makeup of the exterior of the home, where there's been any issues, the condition of the foundation, the grading of the yard, inside the house, the condition of the appliances, the life expectancy and cost replacement anticipation of the appliances, everything else that goes along with it. So like the electrical panel, whether or not it's up to date, your HVAC system, everything from A to Z They really, if they don't have a good understanding, at least of what it should be versus shouldn't be, and they're not able to point that out to you, that's kind of another red flag of like, hey, I'm having a great time with this person, but is this really the person I want advising me on the purchase of a home? And the last thing is contractually, are they, very tight on understanding the contract and adding in all of these clauses, addendums, and contingencies so that you're protected as a buyer and you're not stuck buying a house or paying even more money than you're originally anticipating paying more than. But also that everything is done properly and looks great and is being submitted in a professional manner to that agent and seller so that it stands out that everything's together, all the information has been given, and they as a agent and seller have a pretty good feeling that right from the bat it's going to be a smooth transaction with the buyer and the buyer's agent. So those are the 5 things I would definitely watch out for and just kind of think about as you're moving into this new spring and summer market. It is certainly something we've never seen before. But all that being said, if you have any questions on any of this or just questions on what's going on in the market right now and you're not really sure which way it's going or where you might stand in it, I'd love to get a chance to talk to you. My number is 610-442-9371. You can call or text me at any time. You can also email me at the email below. Thank you so much for your time today. I hope you have a wonderful day.